A woman providing for her man is the greatest blessing. He would remind her with a disarming smile and passionate kiss. Anything your heart desires will be yours. In one sickening motion, he raised his hand and slapped Amara squarely across the face with stunning force.
You are watching Stories with Precious, your best channel for the best of African-themed stories or folktales. Please subscribe, like, and share.
Amara Okafor was always a generous soul. From a young age growing up in the bustling city of Lagos, she loved nothing more than showering her loved ones with gifts, surprises, and helping others whenever she could, even if it meant putting herself last. "My darling Amara has a heart of pure gold," her doting mother Adaku would proudly proclaim. "She will make a wonderful wife to some lucky man someday with her spirit of giving." Though her family was far from wealthy, Amara's kind and selfless nature only grew stronger as she blossomed into a beautiful young woman. She spent most of her small income from working at a local hair salon on caring for others, buying groceries for elderly neighbors, repairing her siblings' tattered school uniforms, or splurging on little luxuries for her mother that Adaku would never indulge in for herself. "Why do you waste your money so freely when we have so little?" her practical older sister Neka would chide her. "You must learn to save and be more responsible." But Amara just shrugged off such criticisms. To her, money was meant to be shared with those you loved, not hoarded away selfishly. If she missed a meal or went without new clothes for a while, so that she could provide for her family, it was a sacrifice she made gladly. Generosity filled Amara's heart with a deeper joy than any material possessions. When Amara met Emeka, she thought she had finally found a man who shared her spirit of giving. The dashing, charismatic young man swept her off her feet with his big dreams and charming musings about building a life and family together. Though Emeka didn't have much in the way of resources himself, he constantly showered Amara with compliments and pledges of unwavering love and loyalty. "My queen, you deserve the world, and I vow to give it all to you once I become a success," Emeka would proclaim, pulling Amara close. "Anything your heart desires will be yours." Amara was utterly smitten. Finally, a man who seemed to reciprocate her nurturing, generous nature. She had met her match, for she believed Emeka's promises wholeheartedly that he would take care of her just as she took care of everyone else in her life. However, Amara's friends and family were much more skeptical about Emeka's true motivations. From their perspective, the dashing but perpetually broke young man only seemed interested in taking from Amara, not giving back. "Amara, this man is using you as a meal ticket," her best friend Adiola warned after coming across Emeka constantly hitting Amara up for money to buy frivolous items like new outfits and nights out with his friends. "Where is his incentive to build something with you if you just hand him everything for free?" Even Amara's mother Adaku sat her down for a heart-to-heart about the imbalance in the relationship. "My child, it seems this Emeka lets you do all the giving while gladly taking everything you offer," she said gently. "That is not the way a union between partners is meant to be. You deserve an equal who will cherish and provide for you just as you do for him." But Amara refused to believe there could be any malicious ulterior motives behind Emeka's gratitude for her generosity. In her mind, his constant need to borrow money was just a temporary situation, until his grandiose dreams and business ventures got off the ground. Once he made it big, he would return her investment of love and funds tenfold. Amara trusted wholeheartedly that she wasn't just another woman being taken advantage of. She was truly Emeka's soulmate and greatest supporter. And so the cycle of Emeka's financial demands on Amara continued unabated. Evenings after work at the salon, she would dutifully transfer money from her wages to his accounts for his latest business idea or emergency need. No questions asked. When she found herself short on cash for her own basic necessities, She simply went without rather than daring to ask Emeka for any money in return. A woman providing for her man is the greatest blessing. He would remind her with a disarming smile and passionate kiss whenever she half-heartedly questioned his constant requests. Amara allowed those words to appease her nagging self-doubts about being used. Of course, she should feel honored to support her man during his hustling days, before his inevitable success. She was a giver, and this was simply her way of showing undying devotion. Things came to a head one fateful night when Emeka made one final, outrageous request that proved to be a step too far even for Amara's infinite well of generosity. He arrived at her house in the evening, greeting her warmly with that charming smile, an easy charm that she found so irresistible. But Amara could tell something was off. There was a hint of desperation in Emeka's eyes that made her uneasy. "My love, I need you to take out a loan from that American bank you use and give me the full amount," he said in a tone more insistent than the usual polite requests. Amara's heart skipped a beat as her brain scrambled to comprehend what he was asking. A full bank loan meant at least 3 million naira. "Emeka, you know I do not have that kind of money readily available," she gasped, clutching at her chest. "For what endless business ideas do you need that type of small fortune?" Emeka looked momentarily flustered, then quickly regained his smooth confidence with a nonchalant wave of his hand. "The details are not important, my queen. Just know that this seed money is the final push. I need to achieve my dream of becoming a success. Once I get this opportunity off the ground, my wealth will multiply tenfold and you'll never want for anything ever again." He moved closer, locking Amara in an intense gaze that made her body go weak in spite of her hesitation. His magnetic pull rendered her powerless to resist as his strong arms encircled her petite frame and his lips pressed into the crook of her neck. "You trust me, don't you, Amara?" Emeka breathed huskily into her ear between heated kisses. "Just say you'll get the loan for me and be a little patient with your sacrifices. Your support is all I need to give us the life we've dreamed of. It will all pay off soon. I swear it." Amara was utterly spellbound, all her worries melting away in Emeka's hypnotic embrace. Of course she trusted him and wanted to do everything in her power to see his dreams realized. If that meant taking out a huge loan, so be it. She would happily keep being the giving one in their partnership, no matter how much she had to deplete herself. That was the beginning of the end for Amara and Emeka's relationship. At first, things went as smoothly as they usually did, with Amara happily handing over the entire 3 million naira loan amount to Emeka for his latest bravado business idea. Weeks turned into months and her repeated inquiries about paying the loan back were deflected with Emeka's typical hollow placations. "All in due time, my love. Big things are finally happening, just you wait," he would insist with his signature easy grin and flourish of affection. When Amara's first round of aggressive calls from the bank's debt collectors began, she realized in her gut that she may have made a terrible mistake putting such blind faith in Emeka yet again. He began avoiding her calls and messages, a clear sign he knew the other shoe was about to drop. The breaking point came when the bank started garnishing Amara's meager wages from the hair salon to recover their loan amount in any way possible. With her income rapidly dwindling and Emeka still ghost, she had no choice but to confront him in person and demand answers. She found Emeka outside a dingy pool hall one night, drunk and stumbling about, with 2 other rowdy men she didn't recognize. Tears stung Amara's eyes at how low her once dashing, motivated man had fallen, yet he couldn't be bothered to lift a finger to pay back the loan that was now threatening her livelihood. "Emeka, what have you done with the money?" she cried out, rushing over to him. Emeka looked up through bleary, hooded eyes. Even in his inebriated state, he registered the anguish and disappointment etched on Amara's face. Rather than feel any remorse, his expression twisted into one of cold indifference. You mean that little loan amount you hassled me for? My ill-advised queen. He slurred with a condescending shake of his head. I used those funds to invest in some other ventures that didn't quite pan out as I'd hoped. Amara felt like she'd been kicked in the gut. All her sacrifices, all her blind loyalty and generosity towards making Emika's dreams a reality, and he had squandered it all on selfish vices, leaving her to drown in his wake. You lied to me. You used me, she whispered brokenly. Hot tears of rage and heartbreak rolled down her cheeks as the full, bitter reality washed over her. The men Emika was with were already jeering at Amara's distress, mocking her for being so naive. Emika just laughed along with them, not even attempting to comfort or defend the woman who had given him everything. Oh, Amara, did you actually believe I would waste my ambitions being some humble working man? He sneered derisively. You were simply a means to an end. An endless well for me to indulge myself from while I searched for bigger opportunities more befitting of me. White-hot anger bubbled up from the pit of Amara's stomach, replacing her hurt. This man she had loved and supported through everything had revealed himself as nothing more than a selfish, heartless user who took perverse pleasure in her pain. How dare you? She screamed, closing the distance between them and shoving Emika hard in the chest. Instantly, Emika's friends moved to restrain Amara, but he waved them off with an arrogant look. In one sickening motion, he raised his hand and slapped Amara squarely across the face with stunning force. She immediately crumpled to the ground from the blow, cradling her throbbing cheek as Emika towered over her menacingly. That should teach you to put your place as a silly little girl who fails to know when she's been played. Emika spat down at her. I kept you around for my amusement until you inevitably started catching feelings and getting delusional. Amara trembled as she gazed up at the monster she had poured her heart, soul and finances into with such pure intentions. This ended now. I curse you, Emika, she hissed, salty tears mixing with the blood trickling from her busted lip. You will never know the peace or fulfillment that comes with an honest heart. Your greed and deception will rot you from the inside, until you are nothing but a hollow vessel of a man. With that, she summoned every ounce of her strength to push herself off the ground and head for home, refusing to look back at Emika one last time. As much as she tried to maintain her usual positive spirit and outlook, a dark cloud of disillusionment and cynicism had settled over Amara's normally sunny disposition. After Emika's betrayal, she slowly paid back the crushing loan debts by pawning everything of value she owned. Her friends and family attempted to comfort her through the devastating ordeal, but Amara simply didn't have it in her to heed their "I told you so" warnings. Her spirit and zest for life had been so thoroughly broken by the men she sacrificed everything for. It took years, but Amara eventually abandoned her dreams of being a beloved wife and finding a partner who matched her nurturing spirit. She threw herself into working at the hair salon and sending what little money she could spare back home to her mother. Polite suitor after suitor was turned away, regardless of how kind or successful they appeared. Amara didn't have it in her to trust any man's intentions ever again. Not after the way Emika had so utterly manipulated and discarded her loyalty. No man is worth sacrificing your dignity and sense of self-worth for. She would lament bitterly to herself. I will never let myself be a swayless giver for a lover again. This grim life philosophy hung like a dark cloud over Amara well into her 30s, even as her friends and siblings began finding their own partners and starting families. She stayed stubbornly isolated and alone. The very idea of opening herself up to becoming a wife and potentially being used again filled Amara with terror. It wasn't until one fateful day while working her usual Saturday morning salon shift that Amara had a reckoning with herself. She was putting the finishing touches on a fresh look for Mrs. Naduka, the city's beloved elderly widow. You're such a caring young woman. Always putting your all into making us glamorous." The old woman cackled warmly as she admired her new hairstyle in the mirror. Amara managed a tight smile, but couldn't help looking at her own haggard, emotionally drained reflection staring back from the glass. "Please, dear, allow an old lady to speak some wisdom into your life," Mrs. Naduka said, her expression turning serious as she turned to face Amara directly. "I've had you silently tend to me for years, and I can't ignore the sadness that seems to consume your light." Amara opened her mouth to protests, but the woman gently shushed her with a wizened finger. "Holding on to anger and closing yourself off is like drinking poison and expecting it to hurt someone else. You're far too young and have too much love to give this world remaining so guarded." The older woman reached over to pet Amara's hand with a warm, wrinkled one of her own. "Whatever hurt you so deeply, you must learn to let it go, my child. Bitterness and distrust towards all men will only continue eating away at your spirit, cheating you out of the beauty and peace you deserve." In that moment, it was as if the years of pent-up anger, resentment and self-loathing Amara had suppressed came bubbling up to the surface all at once. She broke down into deep heaving sobs, holding onto Mrs. Nudica's hand like a lifeline as the older woman gently stroked her back. When Amara finally caught her breath, she realized her body felt almost lighter, as if by releasing those overwhelming emotions, a burden weighing her down had finally been lifted, opening her up to begin healing in earnest. From that day forward, Amara slowly began piecing herself back together and regaining her zest for life. She kept working tirelessly at the salon while pursuing new hobbies and interests that brought her joy. Taking dance lessons, learning to code websites, and nurturing a newfound passion for cooking. Over time, her bubbly personality and warmth seemed to radiate outward once more instead of being mired in distrust and anguish. Amara even reconnected with some of the past suitors whom she had so vehemently turned her back on, giving them a second chance at friendship without any preconceived notions or fear of being used. When a mutual friend reintroduced Amara to Thomas, a doting, reliable widower with 2 young daughters in need of a mother figure, she was finally open-minded enough to say yes to dinner. What she had anticipated being an awkward, pity meeting instead flowed into hours of effortless conversation and laughter, reigniting Amara's capacity to hope for partnership and love again. As Amara and Thomas's relationship slowly blossomed over the next year, she found herself in awe of how different it felt to be cherished and provided for, rather than being expected to do all the providing. Instead of shunning Thomas's generosity and acts of service out of bitter pride, Amara leaned into the comfort of true reciprocity between equals. She deserved to receive just as much as she gave in a healthy partnership. The biggest sign of how far Amara's heart had been reopened came when Thomas nervously asked for her hand in marriage one night over a home-cooked candlelit dinner. Instead of balking at the prospect of being a wife again, Amara studied Thomas's loving expression and saw somebody who only wished to put her needs and well-being first. "Yes," she whispered, smiling with tears in her eyes as she pulled him into an embrace. "This time, I can finally say yes wholeheartedly." Their modest traditional wedding was a joyous affair, filled with cherished loved ones and well-wishers who had witnessed Amara's incredible journey of healing. Surrounded by loved ones who witnessed her journey, Amara dances joyfully with her new husband, knowing she can finally embrace being a wife wholeheartedly without fear or bitterness. She has reclaimed her generous, nurturing spirit, but this time with firm boundaries about being an equal partner who receives as much as she gives. As she danced with Thomas, stealing affectionate glances at her new husband and his adoring daughters, Amara knew she was home.